So this third video is going to just look at the use of colour tones in terms of how they can be used against chord tones. Colour tones, I think I got that term from Joe Pass on one of his old videos, but I like the idea because basically if we've got the chord tones, we have the root, third, fifth, seventh, which are, you know, all very lovely, but the colour tones, which are the ninth, the 11th and the 13th, or the 2nd, the 4th and the 6th, are what creates the kind of really rich jazz kind of harmony. And again, it's not exclusive to jazz, you know, Debussy and Ravel and all sorts of people were using these kind of forms of harmony, but jazz has employed very big sort of, you know, harmony, and that's part of the kind of like, you know, the interest in kind of jazz. And actually what really got me into jazz was the harmony itself. Now, just going straight into it, the colour tones, the best thing to do first of all is to isolate each colour tone and get used to the sound of each one. So if I go over again the first 8 bars of Autumn Leaves in B flat, I'm going to play the 9th or 2nd of each chord first of all. Now, on the minor 7 flat 5 chord, I'm going to play a flattened 2nd, just in correspondence with the diatonic scale it comes out of. But you can play a natural 9th as well, because you would get what this comes out of, kind of the Locrian raised 2nd. But I'm going to play the flattened 2nd here, there, and I'm also going to play a flattened 9th over the dominant chord in that minor 2 5 1. It works a lot better, but we'll finish on this 9th here, okay, and then I can play a flattened 9th over the G, the dominant 7th at the end. So I've got that sound. That's the first colour tone. The second colour tone would be the 4th or the 11th. Now this is going to sound quite horrible when I play this over the major chords, but what I want to look at is then how to resolve those colour tones and get some kind of understanding of the function of them individually. This is one of the good things I think about sort of like going for chord tones and colour tones separately rather than going straight into kind of modes and scales. There's nothing wrong obviously with improvising with mode scales. Barry Harris's stuff is excellent and all the rest of it, but I think it's really good to kind of isolate some of these things first of all and get an understanding of each note within a mode and how they actually function and how you can kind of then hear them. So if I do the 4th of each chord, it will sound like this. Now minor 7ths sound really nice, but we get that kind of sound over a major chords or dominant chords, so we get that. Now I am going to play a sharp 4 over the 4th chord because it is a 4 chord, and you can hear that works really nicely, okay? Then I've got that, and then we've got the 4th over the G minor 7th, and I'll stay with that over the G 7th, okay? So that's the 4th or the 11th of each chord. Now again, I will look at how to resolve these in a second, but the first thing I want to be able to do is to play each note individually and consistently, so I know what I'm actually going for. Final note would be the 6th or the 13th, and again in some sort of theory books this is, you know, seen as an avoid note, but as many of you know, the very first note of Blue in Green, an incredibly evocative kind of like, you know, atmospheric note is that kind of like that major 6th against a minor chord. So there's nothing wrong with these chords, they create some sort of tension or interest. So if we go over the 6th of each chord, we were going to get this kind of sound. Again, major 7th chords sound very nice. Okay. Now on the minor 7 flat 5 chord, again I'm going to play a flattened 6th, so I get that sort of sound. And over the dominant 7th chord on the 2nd line, okay, I'm going to play a flattened 6th, or what's technically kind of augmented 5th, and then we're going to finish on that sound, okay, and then I'm going to go down to an augmented 5th or flattened 6th here. So we've got that sound. once you've got used to playing each of those notes separately and the kind of sound that they produce, so you should be able to kind of hear what you're going for. When I play a ninth and I'm playing a minor seventh chord, I should know what that's about to sound like before I actually play it, and then I can make kind of choices. Once I've done that, then I can get used to a kind of resolution exercise. So with the ninth, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play that, okay? So I'm going to go from the ninth or the second down to the root note. That works really nicely. I can also add in a kind of chromatic idea as well, so I could do, to make it more interesting, so I'm now going from the ninth or the second, semitone down, and then landing on the root note. Now, when I come to here, I can't do that rhythm because I'm already a semitone above the root note that I'm leading to. So what I'm going to do is use an enclosure technique instead. So I keep a consistent rhythm. I'm going to play the flat 9 or flat second. Then I'm going to come a semitone under the root and then come in there. So I get that. Then and then that enclosure thing. So you should be able to hear that. Beginning to introduce the colour tones and some chromaticism into the use of chord tones. The second colour tone that you want to get used to again is the fourth or the 11th, and again what I can do is to resolve that down to the third. And here this is going to be very tense, but then we can hear that resolution. So I played a major 7 sharp 5 there, do that again. Okay, and then I've got this using the raised fourth on that one. So that's moving the fourth to the third, and again I can add that little chromatic passing note. And here, when I'm a semitone above the third, which I will be on this fourth over the dominant seventh chord, I just come one semitone under the third to get myself to the third. Sorry. So that's now using the fourth and getting used to the kind of function of what the fourth can actually do. There's nothing obviously wrong also with just holding the fourth as a kind of solo note, but you can now see that it resolves down to a third. And this is beginning to get you used to what all of these notes do within the mode. So really what we're playing here on that first chord is, you'll notice, a minor triad, just one tone above the actual chord itself. There's the ninth, the fourth, and the 6th, 13th, and then when I move that down I get that kind of sound. Okay, so that gives you the function, and this is really important I think to understand this for each of the chord types, so you've actually got a choice of how you're actually sort of choosing notes and what you're trying to kind of evoke in terms of an actual solo. The final note in terms of colour tones is the 6th itself, okay? Again, it sounds quite a strange note first of all, but if I resolve it down to the 5th, I get that sort of sound. Okay, I'm going to use that flattened 6th. Okay, and then we've got the flattened 6th or the augmented 5th of the dominant chord, and then we finally got the 6th of, and then the augmented 5th over the dominant. So you get that sound. introducing again some colour tones and some chromaticism, but first of all, the whole basis of this was chord tones and really getting used to those chord tones, and then slowly introducing colour tones and chromaticism. Once you've done that, then it's really good to move on to the kind of modes and scales, but you've got a much better idea of how each of those are constructed, rather than just saying, oh, just play, you know, like a diminished or a mixolydian over the top of that chord. You're really understanding the function of each note. So I hope that's helpful. And what I am doing at the moment is recording a really comprehensive course, which I'm doing over summer, which goes through an entire standard. I'll be using PDFs, which you can kind of download, and actually going from these basic kind of like chord tone exercises all the way through to scales, licks, riffs, transcription, and so on and so forth, to actually go from literally start all the way through to finish. All right, thank you very much. Bye.